will say more about that.
Right, thanks very much. Thanks for the welcome. Obviously, that's in honour not just of me, but of the whole operation, which was only possible because we had enormous financial support from our signatures, which I'll say a little bit more about in a minute, and a fantastic team in London working themselves to death, making it all happen, from the EC, and an amazing media team that ran an incredibly professional organisation as a 24-hour process for a number of weeks before we even got to Gaza. And that was what enabled us to get all the publicity that we did, and therefore make the whole thing, whole point of the thing worthwhile. So it was a really big team effort, and I just wanted to pay tribute to that. How was it that JFJFP got involved in the first place? Well, last year I'd thought of doing it in mine and Vanessa's boat, and then the Israelis changed their tactic and started taking possession of the 3 Gaza boats, and so I pulled out of that because I knew they'd basically destroy the boats, and that's my pension lump sum. So my principal suddenly went up in a puff of smoke. Then just a bit later, quite coincidentally, 2 people in the German group, Jüdische Stimme, started to organise funds for a boat, and it was all going quite well. I went out to Germany from our EC to them, asked me to be the captain, and it was all going quite nicely. And then when the m4v Marmara was attacked, the bank that was providing a loan for their boat suddenly realised they weren't going to get their boat back, or it was going to be destroyed or something, and they pulled out effectively. But at the demonstration at Downing Street in protest at the massacre on the Marmara, I got up and spoke on behalf of JFJFP, so, support for the families and condemning the terrible action, and then announced that we were launching a Jewish boat to Gaza, and the international media just picked it up like wildfire, and it went around the world. And then the bank pulled out of the boat loan, and we had an international campaign and literally nothing to launch it with. So we had an emergency meeting of our EC and decided that we would take it up and run with it. And we, in the space of 10 days, having put out an appeal to members, to signatures, got the money to buy a boat. Absolutely astonishing. And so off we went, and then it was a very long, hard slog, just practically doing all the organisation. And just before, people can ask me a lot more about all the technicalities of that later. Just one of the interesting points was, of course, we were very exercised about the fact that the Israelis had sabotaged many of the 3 Gaza boats. 2 of them had identical steering failures, and one an engine failure after it had all been very meticulously prepared mechanically. So we were very worried about that. We thought we'd try and play them at their own game and try to be as secret about everything as possible. It was like living in a Walter Mitty world. It was crazy because we were trying to do this at the same time as dealing with people in the real world, the normal world, brokers we were buying the boat through and so on. And you can't sort of say that, could you buy an unregistered SIM please, and set up a secret email. And so it was madness, but we did our best, and I'll tell you more about that a bit later. So it was a mixture of weirdness and really hard, dedicated work. And then just before I was setting off, my youngest son said, might be a daft question, Dad, but why are you doing this? He's quite up, he's 19, he knows all the politics, he's very good, but he just, so I said, I'll write you something, because I was going off and almost immediately. And so what I wrote him was to say, for me, this is an incredibly personal statement, because my identity as a Jewish person is intricately bound up with the identity of Palestinian people. Because if we are identified with a state that oppresses another, then that Jewish state cannot itself be free, and we're sort of somehow drawn in and implicated with that, whether I like it or not as an individual. And that I elaborated on that in some depth to him about the oppressors. If you oppress other people, you take on the characteristics of oppressors, becomes your cultural rationale, your mindset, the way you think. You get immersed in that. And that therefore, the statement, our byline, two peoples, one future, is a deep philosophical statement for me, not just a sort of clever byline. So then we got to Farm Augusta, and just wanted to say something about the warmth of the people there, which was just amazing. We knew it would be difficult getting in there, didn't know how the port authorities would react. Fishermen immediately helps us with a berth. It's not a proper marina there, they're all sort of already allocated berths and things. Helps us fill up with diesel. He had to go into town with his car to collect the diesel for us, and likewise with water. And then we think, how are we going to get everybody on board? We've got all the passengers waiting for us in Farm Augusta. And so we thought we'll make up a clever little story. We'll say we've bumped into these friends of ours who we knew were also having a holiday in North Cyprus, and we want to take them a spin around the bay. And the port authority said, well, if you do that, we need to know who comes in and goes out, and so we're going to hold their passports. We thought, we've finessed ourselves, we've put ourselves in the real corner. We didn't know how to get out of it. We got back to the pontoon there, and there was a police car sitting at the end, and our hearts sort of sunk, you know, we thought, we've had it now. And then we just come from the press conference in the hotel, which was just amazing. That was the sense of liftoff. Big press conference, very professional. All the main Reuters and AFP and AP and so on all there. And the AP were local Turkish journalists, and they did what was just natural to them. We hadn't thought about this. We were trying to keep everything below the radar. They went off to the port authorities just to get clearance to go into the port and film. And of course they told the port authorities who we were, because we just told them in the press conference. And we were negotiating with the port authorities, trying to find our way out of this corner. And in the end, they just came up to us and they said, look, if you all just want to go and leave our territorial waters, great, just get on board and go. We thought, wow, it's a real scramble, piled everybody on board, held up all the banners, didn't have time to string them up properly. And the fisherman who'd been very helpful put the AP and the other media on board his boat, circled us as we were leaving port. Those were the pictures that went around the world, that went to the Israeli forces as well. That was ones they had. And off we went, forgetting in all the panic to take down the Turkish courtesy flag that you have to fly legally on a boat whenever you're in a foreign port. And of course, we went round the corner, immediately we were in Greek-Turkish waters, Cypriot waters, and loud honking on one side, speedboat comes up, it's the port authority from the local port, screaming at us to take the Turkish flag down, and then asking us where we were going, and where we come from, and where we were going. And we'd got this, once we'd left Farm Augusta, we thought, we made it, we're free, no one's going to stop us now, we're into international waters. And I'll try. And so someone who shall remain nameless screamed out when they said, where are you going? Gaza. And I went, oh no. And I called them back and I said, Captain speaking here. Sorry, that's just someone making a very bad joke. Of course we're not going to Gaza, we're going to Egypt. Because we could see him on his mobile phones and so on. And then that turned it round and they let us go because we could have got held up by them.